Hello everyone and welcome back to another brand new episode of GP24 career. We are going now to India with a small championship leave over Jorge Martin. India track last year on the Honda I struggled a lot with, but a track I do actually enjoy quite a bit. Started off on Friday a little bit behind the 8 ball. I felt pace just wasn't really there. Really struggled out of these slow corners just like this. You can just see how much this KTM just wheelies. Did a lot of laps with Bezecchi and slowly but surely started to find the flow and find a bit of speed, and actually felt pretty decent come end of Friday, and was hoping that the weekend would stay dry, as it felt like the base setting was working in well, but it just had some slight issues with the bike. Just this track just doesn't kind of suit my style. It's very stop start. I enjoy it, but it doesn't seem to suit me, and especially this KTM with the really overall not a great rideability. But we do manage to put ourselves just inside the top 10 come end of Friday, so we squeezed through directly to Q2, keeping our run going there. So I was pretty happy with that, but it wasn't good looking for me when we saw that the rain had come for Saturday. So we went out in Q2 in the wet, and as we've pretty much known all season long, haven't had great time in the wet. I had a bit of an issue as well with the front brake disc, because the recommended disc kept overheating, which meant that I'd have like a real good initial bite, and then as the brakes got hot, the lever would come back to the bar and we just overheat, as you can see there again. So unfortunately I ended up changing to an unrecommended disc, which then kind of ran a bit cold. So I felt personally I was in a bit of a middle zone where unfortunately I couldn't get perfect temps. Now here we are with 30 seconds left to go. We're 1.8 under, and unfortunately it's not as good of a lap as I hoped, but just 0.7 off in P9. So unfortunately we drift off into the runoff at turn 1 and we qualify a long way down. And of course Jorge Martin did put it on pole. Of course as well, the sprint was wet, so we've got to get our elbows out here early in the sprint really to make up a lot of this time, because fortunately really once they kind of get a lap under their belt they do seem to kind of pull away in the rain. So it's one of those things that I'm hoping for the rest of the season we don't get many wet races, as I really seem to struggle with this KTM. There was a real strength on the Honda, I could make the difference. This KTM really doesn't work. We're really aggressive here into turn 1, small bit of contact with both of the factory GP25s. Unfortunately it's not any positions made up, but we look like we're going to get a warning here for the contact with Bagnaia and Quattraro. Again up into this very difficult turn 3, and we go on the inside curb. We actually kind of undercut a few people, and there is one thing this KTM has, and it's grunt and top end speed, and we're up somehow to 4, so 5 people pretty much in that corner. So already I was feeling pretty decent here because I got a good start, and we're getting a lot of speed down this back straight. We can see how much we gained on Bastianini and the 2 Pramacs in front, so I was looking pretty well until Quattraro absolutely didn't even pick me up, just lunged me. And he does get a warning for that, but we dropped him back to 6. We dropped in behind Marcus. We tried to go around the outside, really risky and early here, because I know if I lose the toe it will be one of those races where I got kind of stuck in no man's land. Again, we've gone with the recommended disc, but it is overheating immediately, so it's one of those ones where I couldn't really get the bike setting in the window that I really needed. But early on here it looks like we have decent pace. We look like we close right back on to the back wheel of Fabio Quattraro, but unfortunately as the rest of the race went on we really just didn't get into the next gear where everyone else seemed to make a step. We just kind of plateaued and didn't go forward. Mark, as you can see there, squirming past me. Unfortunately it was one of those races where I didn't really have anything to fight. I felt like my brake overheating really cost me on the heavy braking. I just didn't feel that strong at all. We're down to P6 halfway through this sprint, and you can see here we make a hash of turn 1, just have absolutely no braking performance, go straight up the inside of Marquez, want to touch wide and get ourselves another track limit warning, which is unfortunate. You can see that's Morbidelli, or it's Rins actually, sorry, forgot Rins was even in this championship. I haven't seen him so much around the outside, but thankfully I go a bit wide and I square him off, and then my B4 KTM will have the grunt over the inline for Yamaha. So at this point in time we're kind of squabbling with people that we probably shouldn't really be battling. Miller, Martin are battling for the lead. You can see the overspeed we get there on Marquez, but again as soon as I get on the brakes absolutely just run out of braking performance. I actually kind of just run him wide because I've just literally the levers come back to the bar. I have no more braking performance, so it's been unfortunate because we didn't need this with Martin at the front. And Marcus again has a look, we lean in, but he does just stick the nose in, which just pushes us a touch wise, and again there's a couple of little bits of contact. We try to keep to the inside, we have a look, but I just don't have the confidence to throw this bike in and underneath him. But we get a bit of a switch back, and we run him out of road as well, really quite aggressively. But I feel like he's going to attack back just like that, so he doesn't take the battle well, as he doesn't usually, and he really throws it back aggressively, but we managed to turn underneath in turn 9. But hopefully that'll be the last we see of Mr. Marc Marquez. Now we jumped a few lot forward. We actually started to pull in Fabio Quartararo. I think his pace really dropped off. We have about half a second over Marc Marquez, but unfortunately for me, my last lap was pretty appalling, because I actually really tried to push on and catch Quartararo, and ended up halfway through the lap kind of just giving up and trying to defend, as Bagnaia was coming from behind and almost got ahead of me. But we end up P5 in the sprint, which I suppose isn't too bad considering where we qualified, but still a little bit disappointed considering Jorge Martin, my main championship rival, was sitting pretty in P2. Sunday's race was in the dry, which was in my head, I think it was good. We hadn't shown any extreme pace all weekend, so I was hoping that maybe in the race we might have some sort of tyre offset on the soft and we might get something later in the race. But turns out the wet was probably my best of the weekend, because in this race I do really struggle a lot for unknown reasons. Once again, we get a decent start and we go very aggressive into turn 1, but unfortunately we just kind of get picked up by Marcus again, and it's one of those ones where we just lose position. We're down to now P14 as we enter turn 3, I should say. We just kind of get boxed in once again. We try to get a good exit and rub up inside of Marc Marquez once again. A lot of contact this weekend with the 6-time world champion. I got ahead of myself there at 7. He would soon to be 7-time world champion, but it was one of those races where the start didn't go my way and I felt like it didn't come back to me. And again, down here, look at how aggressive they are on me, and usually I'm the aggressor. This weekend just didn't have the bike underneath me to fight. We're down to P14, so we're nearly not even in the points in the main race, and it was going to be one of those races where I'm going to have to really fight hard to kind of get back. But Jorge Martin currently sitting in P1. It was not being a good weekend to this point for myself in the Indian GP. It was one of those races where I just felt like I got beaten up. I didn't have the tools that I needed on the day, which was quite unfortunate. We have a massive front end slave there. The bike was really moving around. We got passed once again by Acosta, so we're back in P13. So we're definitely losing our championship lead here today if things continue the way they are. We started to get a bit of clear track. We made a few overtakes, and now we're closing in on our teammate Brad Binder, and pace is starting to come to me and getting a bit of clear track. Starting to roll the bike around the base and just kind of start to figure it out. Into turn 1 we managed a nice tidy move on our teammate Brad, and we're now back into the top 10, which isn't amazing but isn't terrible. Into turn 1 again we look quite strong, and we look like maybe we can just try and cut back on Bezecchi, and we do get a good run, but then we have to go around the outside on 2, which means we'll have to be on a really aggressive line into 3, which we go for. Unfortunately, we just don't get a stop, and once again struggling this weekend, all weekend with this bike on the brakes. But we know our bike is really good in the straight, and the GP24 of Bezecchi is just out of the slipstream of Alex Marquez ahead. So we're picking up good speed here in the back of Alex Marquez, up to 217 miles an hour before we got on the brakes. But once again, we weren't able to close in. I just felt like at any moment Bezecchi could lunge me. Thankfully, this time he didn't. So we're already a good chunk of the way through the race. And unfortunately, we just didn't have that turn of pace to kind of get across people, because once you get ahead of Alex Marquez and Quartararo, people have just absolutely left me up the rest of the field, and we kind of end up riding through Alex Marquez, which was a bit unfortunate. I felt like he was going to defend the outside a bit more, so I tried to get on the power, but he actually kind of just nearly sat in my way, so it was a bit of an unfortunate overtake for the contact. But once we got through, tried my best for the remaining laps to maybe try pull back the gap to the 2 factory Ducatis in front, but unfortunately it was like 4.5 seconds. It went up to 7.6. We just had nothing this race weekend, really no speed at all, which is quite worrying. Once again, Miller has done the business, done the double on the Pramac Ducati, which has saved my bacon a few times. Martin second again, and unfortunately a P8 in the main race for me, which is probably one of my worst weekends in some time aboard this RC16 KTM. So it's really unfortunate, and we have of course lost the championship lead. We came in with an 8-point lead, we leave 7 points down, but that is where we're going to end it for today's episode. We have a couple of races in quick succession coming up before the end of the GP24 career mode cycle. So I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you did, drop a like, subscribe, and I shall see you in a future episode where hopefully we can fight back with Jorge Martin at the front of the field. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Slán go fóill.